I want to start today's story with a look at Rwanda today. Usually when people say the word Rwanda, the next word out of their mouth is genocide, which is horrible. Imagine if that was your country. I've had my Rwandan friends kind of quietly say where they're from. And somebody says, "What's that?" And then they speak it a little louder, and they're like, "Oh, I saw Hotel Rwanda. Is that where people were killing?" And it's just terrible to be known for that. But I believe it is changing. I get there every year, sometimes a couple times a year. And before we talk about 1994, I just wanted to give you a little peek. Let's see, I think I loaded it up and then closed it down. Wanted to give you a little peek of Rwanda today. These guys were hired by the government to do a tourism film, but this isn't their tourism film. In fact, are we able to do both sound of the film and my sound simultaneously? Sound people? If I hit play, then we could, huh? All right. That is playing. Yeah, no, it is not playing. I love to just put it all right out in front. You see my laptop and you see the world. But it is this gorgeous little country where, you know, it's almost like a mystery of giraffes and volcanoes and people everywhere. But it is an incredible story of rebirth, an incredible story of forgiveness. Unimaginable that the lady sitting on the back of a bicycle with her hand resting on the shoulder of the peddler is the guy who killed her family. Those kind of relationships just seem like, well, really good. Sometimes mission stories and fish stories seem to grow with time. But in Rwanda, there's no question about the healing that has taken place and the courage and the role of women in Rwanda. I won't play this whole clip. It's about 8 minutes long. But I will ask you, if you wouldn't, you know, whether you do it at lunchtime or any other time, if you just put in your search bar, let's do it right up here, Rwanda Vimeo, okay? And when you put Rwanda Vimeo, it is coming here. You will get, am I on my network? I don't want any of you to get on my network. There we are, Bridges. It'll come back. You'll see the icon in a minute, and you can just share, be part of sharing that story. Because the story of Rwanda is often a story of abandonment, about people not giving a rip from many perspectives. But I don't believe that people are just selfish, self-centered, don't give a rip. I believe that everybody cares to a certain degree, but often we just don't know how to care. So I'm going to try that one more time. You just type in here, Rwanda Vimeo, and you will get, it's not the beach ball, so that's good. There it is. You'll get this icon right here, and you can share that link with people and say, hey, have a peek at Rwanda today and what's going on in that little country in the center. In fact, let's do the geography lesson real quick. I was just in New York City, and I was telling the students at an alternative high school in Long Island that the little country of Rwanda is slightly smaller than the metropolitan New York area. You know, it dips into Connecticut and New Jersey and the city of Long Island. It's smaller than that. It had, in 1994, 2,500 UN soldiers. Imagine 2,500 UN soldiers kind of spread around the metropolitan New York area. And a genocide is about to start, and they've got incredible, reliable intel. And all of a sudden, New York tells them, you got to leave. It is, on many fronts, one of the most tragic, preventable horrors of the last century. So let's just do a real quick look at what we were doing there. We'll dive into a little bit in 94, but we'll also dive into it today. Okay, that's to let you know that I was a college kid once. That's our wedding announcement. Wife and I got married right out of college. 6 weeks later, we moved to Zimbabwe. This is actually about this is about 8 years later. Our daughters were born in Zimbabwe. Our son came back, got an MBA. I was a shop teacher / MBA, and we went to Rwanda, this gorgeous little country, land of 1,000 hills that you got a glimpse of. We're fast forwarding through some things right now. Wednesday night, today's Tuesday, so just imagine, tomorrow night, the president's plane is shot down. And the killing starts immediately throughout the country. This is a well set up genocide. I hate to even use the word well, but a very, very, very intentionally designed plan to exterminate a group of people. The picture that I left out of here this morning, I'm just remembering because I tried to trim down from like a normal 80 pictures to just maybe 20 with you this morning. So you're gonna let me just go back here for a moment and grab it on the other side. I made this graphic. Let's just grab it out of the high school presentation. I made this graphic probably about 8 years ago when I started traveling around to schools to help people understand what this word genocide. You know, we're familiar with suicide and homicide and stuff. Never like this year has this slide made me so sad about my country, about our country. I've been to 20 different countries sharing stories of Rwanda. Every single country in some way or another resonates with this statement. And we had fun unpacking. I say fun. It was fun. It was valuable unpacking this yesterday with a group of you and this idea that there's no such place as my world and shifting our thinking from my world thinking to our world, and our world would be better with you in it. And the way we stop genocide is that mentality, is that shift in our thinking. So let's get back to John Brown here. And so Teresa and I, oh no, those are some friends' kids. It's a little dangerous here. So Wednesday night, the plane is shot down. Thursday, a gang comes to our gate with clubs and machetes. There were rumors that the Belgians had shot the plane down. So foreigners, it was just wild chaos. They're there with clubs and machetes. We don't even know it. We're putting the kids to bed in the hallway, as many brick walls between them and the bullets flying outside as possible. And courageously out of little mud brick tin roof homes came our neighbor ladies. These ladies gathered in front of our gate, and they stood between these guys with clubs and machetes and our family. I thought when I heard about it later, maybe they intended to rob us, but our son's best friend's grandma, one of those ladies, she said no, they were sure they were going to kill us. So Wednesday night, the plane is shot down. Within an hour, lives are being taken. Thursday, the embassy is saying, we're not going, we got to stay, keep your head down. The rebels will take over the city in less than a couple of days. It'll be too dangerous to evacuate. Thursday night, we have this gang at our gate. Friday, the embassy is saying, we're leaving. All of us are getting out. Oh, I meant to tell you, you know what those ladies said in front of our gate? They said, you can't go in there because their kids play with our kids. For 4 years, our kids have been building relationships in the neighborhood, eating I don't know what, running all around. I always joke it was easy to find Sean in the neighborhood. And I just thought, this is awesome for our kids and our family. I never knew that those relationships might one day save our lives. When somebody loves your kids, that's huge. There's very few things that can compete with what it means to have somebody love your kids. And so, Teresa and I had a decision to make. The embassy had said, we're leaving on Friday, tomorrow, Saturday, and Sunday will be the last convoy out, but you can't bring any Rwandans. We had a young lady living and working in our home for about 3 years. Anita, she loved our kids. Our family had grown to include her. Janvier came in the evening as a night watchman. And they were both of the minority tribe, the tribe that was targeted to be exterminated, the Tutsi people. And so when the embassy says, you know, we're leaving, but you can't bring any Rwandans, Teresa and I go in the bedroom, we talk, we pray. Teresa made it interesting. I really wish she was here with us. In fact, I am so tempted to just call her at work right now, but I'm gonna hold off on that. Quiet people are so easy to underestimate. Us loud people don't let you underestimate us. You know, we're loud and we're here and we matter. And yet the quiet, you're waving at me. Yet the quiet people, so easy, and the wisdom and the courage and the strength. Teresa said the other day when we were together with the group, somebody asked, what about fear? And she said, you know what? God gave us enough peace. Sometimes we think, God will give me peace, and it's like, whoo, no problem. No. God gives you enough peace at times. Yeah, there were problems. There were huge problems. But enough peace to not let that fear paralyze you. Enough peace, I'll bet you, the scientists, the neuro people, they would back this up. Enough peace that certain parts of your brain did not go dark, as fear tends to do to our brain. Enough peace to be able to make a choice. And she and I together in prayer, we made the choice that I would stay and she would leave with the kids. When you look at them, they don't look terrified. This was the day we actually left. And you asked Lisa with her legs crossed there on the tailgate, were you afraid? No. Why not? Because Mom wasn't afraid. This role that women play in our lives, and from obviously the crucial one at the first moment of life and 9 months before that, but the role that they continue to play in our lives right until the day we close our eyes final, the gift that God has given us. Talk about underestimate. Rwanda said after the genocide, 30% of our parliament seats will be filled by women in the new Rwanda. It's not true. It's actually because the other 70% were up for men and women on election day in Rwanda. 64% of Rwanda's parliament are women. That's huge. Yeah, why not? That's enormous. Enormous in terms of healing a country, in terms of restoring trust. We can never bring back the lives that were lost, so our challenge is to bring back the trust. And along with the trust comes the hope. And so Teresa will take the kids. We thought maybe for 2 weeks and this thing would end. We didn't imagine that it would be nearly 1 million people and it would go on for 3 months. She took the children, and we were able to stay in touch by radio every day. It was an enormous gift, best part of my day. Actually, I am going to call her. Let me just ring. She's a receptionist. And so I might get a machine. 509, let's see, 8382761. Let me dial here. And I just want you to hear her voice for a minute. Because there is something.
Your call is very important to us and will be answered in the order it was received.
Okay. I'm really like, you guys have to change this recording. It kind of drives me. Anyway.
Good morning, Miss Teresa. How can I help you?
Guess who? Darling, you know what? Yeah, she's saying hello. You can hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I've got you on speaker. I was just telling them about our choice and about prayer and about your statement about peace. And I said, I'm so tempted to call Teresa, but I put my phone back in the pocket. And then when I thought about, those daily radio calls, I'll let you get back at work and something, but can we do the radio thing with these guys for a minute?
Absolutely. Okay.
So I would get my radio hidden in a suitcase full of Barbie doll clothes. I'd hook it up. I didn't know if our house would be searched or anything. I hooked it up to the car battery. The static would come on, and then I would listen for this very, very special voice.
7676, this is Tango Whiskey. Do you copy? 76?
It was, you bet, babe. You see, Tango Whiskey doesn't have any, I don't think she's ever touched it. But it's her initials. And her initials in radio talk are Tango, Teresa Wilkens, Tango Whiskey. Our home station was 7-6. At the beginning, years ago, when I started talking about Rwanda, I said to Teresa, I'm tired of crying in front of people. I'm not going to do this anymore. And very quickly I learned it's not about you, Carl. It's about a much bigger story. And there's nothing wrong with crying in front of people. I better let you go, darling. Thanks. Thanks for joining us, and I'll call you a little later. These guys, I think I'm not putting words in their mouths when I say they send their love. Thank you. Thanks, love. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Seriously, this thing about crying in front of people, I'm crazy about the message. And in fact, for a while, I was angry about some other translations, and I needed to go through a journey. You know, I'm with a guy in Rwanda. It's his first time some years ago, and he's a professional photographer, and God isn't part of his life. And he's just blown away by the country. And we're down by the beautiful lake one morning. We were there making a documentary on a survivor story. I was just invited to come along. And I said, Paul, let me read you something. And I started to read to him. I think it was out of Matthew in the message. You know that verse that says you're blessed when you're at the end of your rope? With less of you, there's more of God. You know, and as I'm reading this chapter to him, we finish. And everybody was giving me a lot of... They would let me do anything since I stayed there during the genocide. They just were very polite, and you know I could read them probably the whole book if they would have been patient. But he says to me, Carl, what were you just reading out of? And before I answered, you know, the Bible, he says, was that the Bible? Because if that was the Bible, I've been screwed all my life. And I'm like, whoa, it's true. There's this news out there. So in the message, there's a place after the Beatitudes when Jesus says, if you will open your heart to others, there's a great, great chance that they will open their heart to God the Father. And some of you maybe are fans with me. Brené Brown, that TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, and what it means to open our hearts. And for some people, depending on what their life story is, you know, that same principle is true. You simply say it in a little different words. If we open our hearts to others, there's a great chance that they will open their hearts to good. And then, as they open their hearts more to good, I believe they will find. They'll find God. He just might not be in the names or the ways we have grown up with. But so Teresa takes the kids. I'm stuck in the house for 3 weeks. Finally, I get out. They lighten the curfew a bit. The roadblocks are terrible. But I get to this man's office, and he gives me a travel permit. He, in fact, and I will develop quite a relationship. And at this point in the story, I want to just put a couple words up here. I'm a visual learner. And so finding allies among the, and I put quotation mark here, enemy. Because really, who is the enemy? I shared with a class yesterday. I was Skyping with a friend in Kurdistan, and she told me about this group. Have you guys? I bet somebody here. It's already search bar. Somebody here has seen this group called Preemptive Love. And you come down through their website. What can we do about Syria? What can we do about so many places in the world? And when Heidi was saying, you know, scroll down the page, Carl, down here to this picture, those men in the yellow jackets, I started to get a lump in my throat. These, she says, click on that story. And you know, as I clicked on that story, loving your enemy, even when it's ISIS, yes, even then. You killed my friend, but I've come here to feed you. In every situation in the world that looks so dark and so horrible and so impossible, there are these, you know, you're a light. I'm not covering you up with a bushel. You're going to stand on the hill and you're going to shine. And so I met this man who was, by all standards, the enemy. And yet, he and I developed a relationship with this travel. Without this travel permit, I couldn't have gotten to half the places I got to. I went to places in the city, the UN soldiers, the few who remained. I mentioned the 2,500. Most all of them were withdrawn, but the 280 or so who remained did incredible work. But they were limited too. the reason I even went to this man's office, a Rwandan pastor who stayed with me in my home, man of deep commitment to God and much wisdom. He said, Carl, if you're going to do anything outside the house, you've got to build a relationship with the people in power. And so he sends me out. I managed to navigate the roadblocks with his document. He sends me to this man. Damas has an orphanage with 80 kids. People are looking for a safe place for their children, and they start bringing them there. It grows from 80, 180, 200, over 400 people. And as I come in the driveway the first time, the parking lot has graves in the driveway, little ones who are dying from diarrhea. I mean, some were killed at the orphanage. Fortunately, not many. Most would be killed before reaching the orphanage, but now they're dying from, nobody should die from diarrhea. So my mission is very clear right away. Water is a number one priority. I'm working with another colleague. I worked with the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's called ADRA, Adventist Development Relief Agency. And one of the men that I worked with there, Gasikwa, last night when we had more time, we were telling lots of stories about this man's faithfulness and his courage. But I couldn't have done the work without his partnership. Usually when we think of allies, we think of friends, and this man would definitely, meet that criteria. But he was also finding allies among the enemy. He had more than 40 people in his home. When they came to kill, he would meet them at the door with a chicken. He'd say, Bernard, your daughters must be hungry. Here, take these chickens. Now, this confused me when I first heard the story because I'm like, wait a minute, they're killers. Killers are like, well, they're killers, 100% evil. But you can see where I'm going, huh? Number one, I don't care what choices or decisions you have. Well, I do care, but what choices or decisions you made, you can never completely eradicate the image of God in a person. You can't. And so if we believe that the good is there, we have a lot better chance of accessing it than if we don't believe. We look away. We miss some of our most powerful allies. Gasikwa, these are 3 other words I want to leave with you today, kind of tools and things like that. Respect. And I know, even when our time is short, I take time to color this. There's ways our brains work that we're still figuring out. And so I'm just going to make that one purple. And the next one, respect leading to empathy. Okay, it'll still be purple. And empathy leading to inclusion. Think about these 3 values and this story. Gasikwa meets them with respect. You can see empathy. Seriously, I think you can see empathy flying all over the place, ricocheting around. Those mirror neurons and stuff like that when you do a kind act in somebody else and and the good juices flow in the brain and the brain lights up and those kinds of things. The respect, you see, our problem often is that we start with inclusion. And then we're like, well, that person doesn't deserve respect. It's not about them. Shoot, you can be respectful with respectful people. Anybody can do that. Jesus said, it's your enemy. It's the one who doesn't deserve, by our standards, respect that really calls out from us the image of God in terms of demonstrating that respect. And Gasikwa, again and again, he turned them away. And I would like to believe that some of these killers were looking for an excuse to be turned away. Towards the end of this 3-month time, Gasikwa and I are bringing a load of water to this largest orphanage. We show up there. Kids were always just, one little metal cup, one drink of water. We haven't been there for a couple of minutes, and we all of a sudden are surrounded. Guys with machine guns and machetes, and they had warned them the day before. They'd said, empty the orphanage. We're coming back tomorrow. We don't care Hutu or Tutsi, the majority, the minority. We don't care who's here. We're going to kill everybody. The young brother came out of the Damas, who I introduced you to. His young brother came out and said, Carl, your arrival is like an answer to prayer. We have a more or less 3-hour standoff. I honestly don't know how you measure time in a situation like that. Gasikwa was siphoning as slow as he could, but soon he was done. And I won't get into all the details of the story. At the second week of the genocide, when I quit, the first 2 weeks I'm arguing with God, saying, look, God, you wanted me to stay, keep me alive. That's the deal. Really stupid. as if God needs somehow to be convinced of something. And I love to get into the conversations. Sometimes we think the more people we get praying for it, the more God is going to do something. Are you kidding me? God is doing more than we can ever imagine. The more we pray about it, the more people we get involved with praying, the more likely we'll do something in the power of God. Because God works through people almost all the time. I know we like the stories with, like a magic invisible shield or the trigger didn't, and I don't doubt those miraculous stories. But when ladies are standing in front of your gate and saying to these guys with clubs and machetes, totally unarmed, they're saying, you can't come in here. Or the film that came out this weekend, he was one of my childhood heroes. I read his book, Hacksaw Ridge. And here he is going into battle with only his faith. While others are taking lives, he thinks it's a good idea to save lives. The power of our choices in situation are enormous. And so I'm here, we're surrounded. It's like a 2 or 3 hour standoff. And I'm back at the 2-week point. Hold that story for a minute. I quit arguing with God. And I say, okay, God, I don't want to die, but I'm going to trust you. I was really afraid of hell. Be flat out frank with you. I know, saved by grace, but there's that little but often that comes in. You get into those horrible situations, and that little but just becomes huge. I should pick my words better. Sorry. That's the problem when you don't work from a script. But those doubts become enormous. I'll remember that one next time. The doubts. They become enormous, and I said, okay, God, if I don't survive, I know you'll take care of Teresa. I know you'll take care of the kids. And Teresa knew. She knew the risk much better than anybody. When she was 3, her dad was killed in a small plane crash. Her mom was left with 4 children, 5 down to 6 months, 5 years of age down to 6 months. She knew what being a widow was like. But Teresa said she had enough peace. I said, if I'm not going to survive, I want to leave something for her and the children. So I started recording cassette tapes. By the time the genocide was over, I had about 8 hours of tapes. And so I finally, 5 years ago, wrote a little book called I'm Not Leaving, based on those tapes to my family. And copies are out there later. You're welcome to help yourself. But at the end, okay, I was just here at the orphanage, and okay. So I don't feel bad about not finishing the orphanage story, because you can grab the book and you can get the story there. But I will just kind of give you the ending of the story. You see these little kids, and some of you who are artists, please keep going. And I know people will tell you, get that practical job and do your art on the side or something. If that's your passion, make that your life. Look, Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools we have. It's what Jesus modeled to us all the time. The kingdom is like this guy, and he ended up with pigs. And no, it's this lady, and she, the stories. So you, with those artistic skills that you're able to help us tell the stories. I love Robin, his work in this 40-minute film. This is just a drawing out of that film. It's so powerful to me. Those kids are looking out from the orphanage. They see the men who've taken the lives of their parents, and they think today is their last day. One of these boys I become really good friends with, Johnson and I. And Johnson saw his mom get killed. When they kicked the door in, and then they kicked the Bible out of his mom's hands, and they took his mom, she said, "Don't you stay here, don't you follow me." But of course the 9-year-old followed, and he looked at the crowd gathered around his mom and other neighbors, about 30 of them about to be killed. Some were laughing, some were smiling, some were frightened. He says, I was looking for somebody who would help my mom. Didn't cry. It was years later, he says, I woke up in the night sometimes and my pillow was soaking wet from crying in my sleep. The loss that cannot be restored. And is my life now going to be defined by what I lost? Or is it going to be defined by what I do with what remains? That's one of the most powerful lessons I've learned from Rwanda. These kids, we did survive. I ended up asking the prime minister. They killed the prime minister. The extremists put in their own, one of 3 guys in charge of the genocide, and I asked him to stop this massacre, and he did. I have my own theories as to why he did it, political reasons and such, but the point is, he did. And I never would have asked him except a secretary suggested it there. This Rwandan lady who's sort of in the belly of the beast. She's right in the middle of the office where all of this genocide for the capital city is being directed from. And this lady says, I tell her my problem, and the orphanage is surrounded by 50 guys with guns, and she says, ask him. He's here on a surprise visit. Makes no sense to me. And honestly, I don't think it's what I said to him that convinced him. I think my being there, the power of presence. Often when we don't know what to say or what to do, we absent ourselves. We don't make that phone call. We don't make that visit. Because I don't know what to say. I mean, it just seems so, I don't know. Well, okay, for us loud people, when we don't know what to say, we really should shut up. But don't stay away. Be present. So I'm back in Rwanda. And this is favorite, and there's video clips that I'm resisting from sharing with you right now, but the reunion was unimaginable, you guys. Every night, going to sleep, imagining the day that I would get back together with my family, believing the day would come, and it came. But I'm back in Rwanda, and this is last summer, a group of teachers, and these are men and women who've confessed to killing their neighbors. They're in a work program. They're being given an opportunity to reinvent themselves. I'm really excited to hear that here at John Brown you have a lot of international opportunities, and super excited that different mission organizations are here today and this week to travel and to learn. One of the greatest blessings we can have. And these students I was with were asking these 200 men and women why they did it, how they could live with themselves. Incredibly profound questions and interactions. And to be honest, I was with a group of theater students a year and a half ago at another camp. These men are burning bricks. Basically, these people are being given bricks that'll be used for schools. These people are being given a chance to reinvent themselves. From a label on their book, a title that would say killer, to much smaller font, it could say brickmaker. They're allowed to go unescorted to a church on the weekend in the neighborhood. I asked the guy in charge, do they ever try to escape? And he says, well, no. If they want to go home, we give them 10 days every year to go home for a wedding or a funeral. And it sounds so good, but look at this, and this is where we'll wrap. See the young lady's hand on that man's back? I have to confess to you that second chances, reinventing yourself, restorative justice, it sounds fabulous. But there was still something inside of me that said, don't touch him. What he's done to babies and women and grandmas, don't touch him. You know, there's got to be another way. But there's not. If we are going to restore life, restoring the kingdom, it's hard. And for me, this is what helped me in this situation. Look at them. Right behind me, I took this picture. I turned around and I took that picture. There they are, peeking out from underneath a hedge, witnessing one of the most remarkable experiments in restorative justice that I think we've ever seen in modern history. I did meet that guy in prison 2 summers ago, and I met him again, this guy who was leading the killing squad, the guy who killed Johnson's mother, and I met him again 2 months ago. We won't go into his story, and I'm sorry it's not in the book. Seriously, this is part of my own journey where the 5 crucial foundations that I hold as truths came back and really helped me find a way. Because when I stumbled on this man in prison, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was sick to my stomach. But when I get really messed up, there's 5 things that I turn to. And I will I will just share them with you. If you'd like that story, I did write it up. Just email me or Facebook me, and I'll share them. But I went back to these 5 points. Always. That was a tough one because it's hard. I think delight is measured by my actions, or, I'm measured by, no, I'm his child. That is the one massive reason that God takes delight in me. It calms my heart like nothing else. I'm a little nervous here. And number 5. And as I was recentering myself the night that I met this man who's responsible for killing more than 2,000 people, as I recentered myself with these 5 truths, I realized if they are true for me, they have to be true for this man, Gregoire. So for more than a year now, I've been substituting his name. And it's been an incredible journey. Thank you very much. God bless.